Guys, what's up? Welcome back to For StarCraft 2 Strategy. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Protoss strategy. Now in this replay, our Protoss player is Insolence, and our Terran opponent is Cloud. I'm going to go right into Insolence Vision. Again, this is a Protoss strategy. I'm going to be discussing today why proxy builds or early game rushes and or pressure are not all in, and why people should stop crying. Basically, we get a lot of comments from people when we post any strategies that involve applying early pressure or building proxy buildings and doing just some sort of early game rush. And basically the biggest complaint or the biggest issue people claim that they have with it is that it's all in, you're terrible if you do it, it has no transition to the mid to late game, and people just do it when they have no skill. Well, one thing I do want to note right before I get into any discussion about this is, if you happen to watch any sort of games from professional level players, you will almost always see in every game some sort of early pressure. You won't always see proxies, but a lot of the time you will see early Marine, Zealot, and Zergling harassment to just kind of be obnoxious and just to be a pain. So if the claim that people who do this have no skill is true, then you're saying that all professional level StarCraft 2 players have no skill. I find that hard to believe. I'm going to jump right into this build order real quick though before I go any further. We're going to be looking at just a 9 Pylon and a 9 Gateway. So this is not a standard build. This is not a standard straight up economy build. This involves applying a lot of early pressure and just trying to be a nuisance to your opponent. So is Insolence a terrible player? Does he have no skill? Does he have no transition to the mid game? No, that is not the case. In fact, in this replay, you will see excellent use of attempting to apply some early pressure on your opponent and then transitioning into the mid game with a 4-gate build. Basically, what I want to touch home on is that just because you're going for early pressure doesn't mean you're sacrificing everything entirely. Now obviously there are certain builds which will really hinder your economy if you go for them, but a majority of the time, just because you're building a proxy or you're applying early pressure doesn't mean it's cheese or that it's all in, because that's not the case. As you can see here, we're dropping our Assimilator. That is going down at 20 supply. This entire time we've been keeping on top of working on our economy, building up probes. A majority of the supply that we have is in fact our probes. We only have 2 Zealots on the board right now, another one coming out. So the goal behind this, the idea is to try to throw off your opponent. When you apply early pressure with either a proxy building placement or just by going for early pushes from buildings built inside of your base, that's not all in. It's just early aggression. That is all it is. And it's really important that you take note of that and don't just dismiss certain strategies and tactics because you may be afraid of people saying that you're doing an all-in strategy or whatever. First of all, why should you even care what people say about you? You're playing a video game. Have some fun, for God's sakes. Going back to our base here, Cybernetics Core, that was going down at 23 supply. We also have an additional gateway going down, and we dropped that at 24 supply. Now that this is up and we have the Vespene gas to do so, we're going to start researching our Warpgate tech. So as you can see, you know, we're in the front of our opponent's base. We're kind of keeping them boxed in at this point, knowing that we have all Zealots here. We were afraid of seeing a Reaper, and we do in fact see that. So once our Cybernetics Core is up, aside from getting that Warpgate research right away, you do of course want to get a Stalker out. That is going to help fend off this Reaper, because those Reapers can just cut around your Zealots all day. Now, our Terran opponent did properly respond to this. He saw that we were building a Proxy Gateway. He knew that we're going to be aggressive really early on, so he responded by getting some bunkers and playing a little defensively, building early game units as opposed to teching up. So that's a great response on our Terran opponent's part, but it could have been the case that in going for this this proxy gateway rush, you could have done a lot of damage early on. If that's not the case, you don't have to give up. You don't have to say, that's it, this isn't going to work anymore. Just transition. You know, always work on your economy while you're going for any sort of early pressure like this, and be prepared for a transition. Again, we got this Assimilator here. We dropped down that Cybernetics Core, got this additional gateway, going to get this another gateway right here, so we'll be sitting on 3. Obviously, at this point, we are sacrificing this gateway. That's kind of the trade-off, that if you go for a proxy building placement and you don't take them out early, you're going to lose those buildings. You have to just be aware of that. And some people just prefer to play that style. They prefer to play aggressively, and they prefer to take the chance of losing this building for the chance that they may wipe them out early. But again, just because you're going for this doesn't mean it's the end of the game if it doesn't work. You know, just take a deep breath, relax, realize you still have a lot of options, especially as long as you have kept your economy going, as long as you have kept producing workers, obviously as Protoss, as long as you keep producing probes. All is not lost if that initial push doesn't work. Now we do have control of the Xel'Naga Tower. Always a great idea to try to do that as much as possible in your games. It'll give you a nice early warning of pressure from your opponent. Seeing that come out, we are going to want to drop a sentry. This is going to allow us to force field the front of our ramp and prevent them from pushing into our base. So as soon as we have the means of doing so, that sentry should be coming out in just one moment. I don't want to speak too soon. I know it's coming at some point. Something you will note too is that we did initially start off by getting a robotics facility, but since we saw that push coming from our opponent, we canceled that robotics facility and opted to get for 2 gateways instead, to go for that 4 Warpgate build. Now again, here we go. We do have this sentry out, and something I want to know is when you do have a counter push from your opponent, if you go for that proxy pressure that doesn't work, use your sentries to either force field them out of your base or cut their forces in half and take out half and then push on the remaining half. Both can be very effective. Obviously that decision is going to be based on his army size in comparison to yours. If he has a much larger army than you, you of course want to force field them outside of your base so that you don't lose your units. But if it looks about even, or if you seem to have some sort of an advantage, then cut his army in half as he pushes up against you, and you can do significant damage and pretty much wipe them out without much recourse on their part. Now we did, with that probe that we had here on the Xel'Naga Tower, we dropped a pylon midway between our base and his. This is going to allow us to produce additional reinforcements much quicker and much closer to where the battle is going to be taking place. On this particular map, we can take advantage of these destructible rocks. Really, really great for Protoss players going for a 4 Warpgate build, because you can be so mobile, warping units in any spot on the map that you have pylon power. Any maps that have 2 entrances to your opponent's base, you can really abuse that ability by placing pylons in multiple locations, and if they fortify one area, warping units at that other area and push in that way. Again, making use of this force field, cutting his army in half and then pushing in our zealots. Since they can't back up and they have to walk all the way around the force field, our zealots are able to engage them and cut them down very quickly. And as you can see, this is just too much for our Terran opponent to handle, and it is going to be the end of the game very shortly. So just main things to note in this particular strategy replay, main things that I did want to go over is, again, the fact that, what did I just do? I'm going to go back over here because I need to make sure that we have vision of everything that I need to discuss. I have no idea. Okay, so main things that I do want to note in this particular replay is that, you know, we went for that early game pressure here. We went for that Proxy Gateway to do some early zealot pressure, even eventually getting out some stalkers. And it's not all in. Just because someone goes for a proxy build doesn't mean it's all in. It's very important that you understand that this is just an aggressive type of playstyle, and just because someone does it doesn't mean that they are screwed if it fails. Again, if you work on your economy the entire time, you continue to produce probes, and you can easily transition into getting a Cybernetics Core, getting that Warpgate tech, going for this 4 Warpgate build, or if you're not seeing early pressure and you prefer, you can go for that 2 Warpgate and Robo build, allowing you to get out either Colossi or Immortals, and then of course those observers to get some great scouting information from your opponent. Sorry about that little backtrack there. No idea how I managed to do that. Definitely just misclicked that bar. And that's another reason why I need an overlay. So please, if you guys can get those overlays into me, try to avoid mishaps like that in the future. So once again, guys, this has been for StarCraft 2 strategy. We did just take a look at why proxies and early pressure is not all-in strategies and aren't really completely cheesy. If you guys like our videos and you like what we're doing here, please do go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Keep watching and keep owning, guys. Now, once this pylon is coming in, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and warp some zealots into his base and then move in with those zealots and our void rays. As you can see, that second void ray has just finished building right now. Now at this point we see a counterattack coming. Now he's kind of hesitant as to whether he should go back to his base.